Hello, 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 and welcome back to another English podcast with Paul. Okay, so today we're talking about communication here in Britain. Now, it might be very similar to your country, it may be very different. So, this is what we're talking about. The reality is that many people, when they go to a country, they find that the local people can't understand what they're saying, or you can't understand them. And it's not just that they're talking quickly, and also you'll find that people don't want to talk to you because it's hard work talking to somebody that doesn't communicate in the same way that's normal for local people. Now, what I mean by this is that there's a lot more to talking to somebody than just getting across the words and listening to those words, because there's a lot more to British communication. We have a massive love affair with sarcasm, and we often inject a lot of attitude, and often humor or riddles in our regular conversation. We're not the same as a textbook. One person talks, the other person talks, the other person responds. In that sort of, that's not reality of speaking in Britain, in England. It's much more of a whole communication thing going on. Not just the body language or the sensitivity in the subtle art of sarcasm, or the riddles and the way we try to express ourselves more poetically, depending on our moods. And that has a big difference. That has a big deal to deal with how we get across that message, would be our mood, So there's a lot there going on. All right, and I'm going to try and break it down into a few different examples and different scenarios. So whether you're at work, maybe you're at home, or maybe in the street, in the pub, in a shop, something like that, all right? So try and break it down to three different aspects, and then I'll try and wrap it up a little bit for you. All right, so work. In a regular job, like a blue-collar job, many of us critique and complain about where we are and what we're doing by speaking sarcastically. So you might say something like, the management of this company are amazing at how they make our roles more effective with the paperwork. Now we have paperwork and the app on our phone that we must input information. I think they're brilliant. They're amazing at the way they did that. So there might be a wink. A lot of times there isn't. Most people understand real sarcasm. And this is often done because it makes camaraderie between you and your work colleagues. You're in a shared experience that could be so much better. So that builds a lot of sort of trust that you both are on the same page about the way you feel about the company, especially if you're complaining about the company. Sometimes you might not actually dislike the company, but you want to be better connected with your colleagues. And so sometimes, if for example, maybe you're not into football, sometimes to connect with another person in your workplace, you may complain about the same kind of things, but more subtle, and make it more humorous, much more fun. So that's another way to connect. And like I said about the subtle art of sarcasm, it's said so gently and softly that you have to look at a person twice just to see if there's a little smirk, a little smile, as if to say, yes, I'm taking the piss, or I'm being facetious. Now, what's the difference between sarcasm and facetious? It, again, is quite subtle. Facetious is normally considered being awkward on purpose, whereas sarcasm can be for fun, can be for connecting, or can be sometimes even accidental. So there's lots of different ways of being facetious and sarcastic and humorous to build connection with other people. That's generally why we do it, to build connection, you know. Right, okay, so that's kind of like at work. You know, we do that a lot. At home, we often talk in riddles or metaphors. Sorry, I'm just reading some of my notes down here. Often we'll say things very short and even omit letters or words from the actual sentence. My brother is a bugger for doing this. He's kind of like got a lot of ADHD. And you've got to really tune your ears to my brother because he speaks really fast. I struggle to understand him. He speaks very fast and he forgets that he hasn't said the end of the sentence. He doesn't articulate fully or properly every single word. His brain is going so fast that he skips bits off. Okay, so like I said at home, something you might say is, hey, to your children maybe, hey, don't cry wolf. You know what happened to Peter? And you might be scratching your head and saying, what? Cry wolf? What are you on about? But some people do know that there's an old fable about a young boy that cried wolf, wolf, wolf to get the villagers to come out and help rescue the sheep because he was looking after the sheep and wanted attention and liked to play games on the other villagers. And actually there was no wolf. He was lying. And so this happened 3 or 4 times and then people didn't believe him. Then one day he shouted wolf and the wolf come and ate him and he died. So bit of a morbid story, I know, but it is a point of if you keep lying, people won't believe you. So we may say to our children, hey, don't cry wolf. You know what happened to Peter? I think it was Peter and the wolf or I don't know. Maybe that's just a word people use for a young boy. Anyway, the point is that we use these metaphors. We might say other metaphors. Oh, there's thousands and thousands of metaphors. You might say to your children, oi, up the apples and pears. That's not a metaphor, I know. But you might just use a different way of saying, get up the stairs to bed. You know? It might not just be London slang or Cockney rhyming slang. It might not be any of that. It might just be phrases that you've heard or phrases that you and your family know really, really well. I'll see if I've got another one here. Or when it's cold and wet, you might say, I did this the other day. It's really bad of me, I know. It was a horrible day here in Britain and it was really miserable and cold. And somebody came towards me and I just said, don't forget to buy your sun cream. Now, obviously, you don't need sun cream when it's cold and wet and horrible, but I was being facetious, you know, because I just wanted to smile and, you know, make the other person, instead of saying hello, I wanted to say something different to get them to smile. And I often do talk to strangers just to say hello or give them a compliment and then keep walking. Just as a way to connect with people sometimes. And sometimes I think about making other people's day happy, you know, or trying to brighten up that other person's day. I'm not fully responsible for this stranger, but if I can just give them a little compliment and be on my way, that might make them a little bit happier. You never know what they're going through. All right, we digress. Okay. What else we got here? Phrases up the apple pears, gone wet. Don't forget the sun cream. Oh, that's what there was. To anyone's going past. What does that say? Bad times, yeah, in the lounge. Okay. So another thing that you might say to maybe somebody that's done the laundry, you could say, "Oh, can you put my clothes on the horse?" Now, I don't have a horse, but it's a phrase we use that you hang clothes up on what would be considered like a wooden clothes horse. So it's not actually in the shape of a horse, it's just something that stands up to allow the air to circulate around your clothes to dry better. Maybe this would be in an upstairs room because heat rises, or back in the old days, we'd have ones on the ceiling and it would just be a rack that's pulled up by rope. Anyway, I digress. So there's lots of little things we say in and around the house to the kids, to your partner, that's using different words, You know, we're not just paraphrasing, we're using completely different sentence because it's more spicy, it's more interesting to say something different. Okay, more elaborate conversation. All right, so that's at home. You know, we might say something like, you know, oh, grub's up. You might think, what the heck is that? Grub is another word for food. Your dinner, your lunch, your breakfast. Food is ready. You know, nyet nyam bai, you would say in Cambodia. You know, time to eat rice. Food is ready. Grub's up. We've even got a van that comes around some industrial states, working areas. And if you're like in a shop or something, you could go out to the van. Or sorry, if you're a trade person, you can go out to the van and get yourself some hot food. And that's called grubs up. We have a lot of vans that go around to trading estates and commercial areas and sell food, especially around lunchtime. Okay, digressing again. What did I got there? Another thing I've said before is if somebody says, it's your turn to do the dishes, or your turn to take the dog for a walk, or your turn to empty the bin, you might say, I'll flip you for it. And that implies flipping a coin. Or you might say, rock, paper, scissors, to help make a decision, or to maybe even just get out of doing it yourself. So I'll flip you for it. So we've got lots of phrases and colloquialisms that we use, you know, as terminology to get across a message. You know, instead of arguing, you change it. So that sort of thing you might do at home. Lots of different ways of expressing the same thing. All right, so what have we got next then? Now, this is more another way. You're either at home, in the pub, or at work. And this is more like what you would say to a friend. This often is more a sign of affection, and it's generally done by men, where we would outright and blatantly be derogatory or deflammatory towards our friend, our colleague, you know, even rude. You know, we would say rude things to our friend, which is actually a way of showing that we like them. So you might say, oi, fatty, get out of that chair, do some work. Or, look at the dent you're making on that chair, it's going to break, it's crying, get off, go do some work. And that again, like I said, is a way of showing affection. Or you might say, are you a fucking idiot? Come on, sort it out. Again, it's being polite. No, it's not. It's being impolite, but it's being loving and friendly towards the person. You would only say this, obviously, if you liked the person and you were just having a bit of a laugh. And you would build up that repertoire. You'd build up that sense of friendship by testing each other. You would say something light, first of all. You know, like, come on, old man, get on out. And if the person reacts in a bad way, who do you think you're calling old? And gets offended, then obviously that person doesn't like that approach. Yet if you say it to somebody else and they banter back with you, which is being inappropriate and rude back and forth, that's fun. That's connecting. And so once you've got a friendship or a connection with another person, you can tease one another. It's kind of a bit like flirting, I guess. But you could tease the other person and it goes back and forth. And it keeps you happy and positive and is a bit of fun to help get through the workday. So, hey, retard, you don't know how to work that computer. Let me give you a crayon. You know, you're implying they're stupid. But again, it's out of love and affection and friendship. And this happens a lot with men to build that connection. It's really quite funny if you were a fly on the wall. Again, that's another expression implying that if you weren't actually a human in the room, but you're able just to listen in to what was happening. Oh, if I was a fly in the wall, you would say that. So we often hear things that we think is really, really funny and don't comment on it too much. I got the cat down here meowing at me. wanting some dinner. Okay, so that is workplace or in the pub or when you're with your friends. You have a lot of banter. We call it banter. Light-heartedly joking. Another area you might use this, or another reason you might use this, is in highly stressful situations. So we consider it maybe dark humor. Now, I've been in the care industry, and I've been working with people I know that have worked in hospitals and also in the funeral industry. So these areas are important to have a lot of appropriate behavior and appropriate speech, or professional, if you prefer, professional and careful speech. You're not allowed to say particular things. And often in the care industry, the hospitals or funeral industry, and probably a few other industries, we have this dark humor, which is really, really wrong, but you're saying it to somebody in confidence, somebody in a safe environment, to be able to vent that high level of stress and professionalism. So you might work with somebody that's deaf, and with your colleague, you might say, "Oi, get him to turn around." He can't hear you, and it's not harming anybody. But sometimes in stressful situations, you purposely say wrong things or rude things or bad things to help alleviate that pressure. And I think that's probably why we like swear words so much, especially in maybe the catering industry or maybe on building sites. You hear a lot of profanities, a lot of foul language, a lot of swear words. And you hear children do this as well, not just to be rebellious, but again, it's a way to vent frustrations in stressful situations. So they say when you hurt yourself, say you stub your toe, you hit your toe on the coffee table, and you swear in a foreign language, like "merde," then they say that's when you really are fluent, is when you start swearing in your target language. So imagine that, eh? Maybe another video we could give out lots of swear words and cursing and foul language. Comment below if that's what you'd like to hear. All right, okay. So we talked about the different reasons why we have this dark humor, being inappropriate and ways of coping. All right, like I said, is not done with malice. All right, malice is like angry, purposeful, mean-spirited. All right, it's not done with malice. Something else that might be said in the workplace is teasing and pulling somebody's leg, taking the piss. One way of doing that, you might say to a younger student or a younger member of the team, "Oh, can you go to the stores and the warehouse and get me a long weight?" And then you send them off. And then maybe 2 hours later they come back and say, "Oh, you idiot, there's no such thing as a long wait." And everybody knows it's a joke to send a young person off as part of a way of growing up and being accepted in a company. So a long wait, maybe, "Oh, can you go and buy me some tartan paint?" Now, if you don't know, tartan is predominantly Scottish colours of clothing, would have stripes in it and things like this. You can Google it. So you can't actually buy tartan paint because it's multicolored. So you don't normally buy multicolored paint because as you stir it, it would mix all the colors. So that doesn't work. Again, it's just a joke. "Go buy me tartan paint. Can you go and get a glass hammer?" So it doesn't exist. Or can you fax me over or can you photocopy me some paper? I need some paper. Can you photocopy me or email me some paper to my office? Again, it's a joke. It's stupid. But it's something we normally do historically to younger people or younger students coming up through the ranks in a company. They used to call it horseplay. Maybe they'd, I don't know, put a broom through your arms so you're like a scarecrow for a while. Silly things like that. is being more and more eradicated in the workplace because there's been some accidents and incidents. Anyway, okay. So again, it's about affection. Being rude or inappropriate or wrong with a smile and the right connotations and meaning can get across and help build not just motivation and camaraderie, but really help morale with lots of people. And that's often what we're doing. We're help building morale, whether in the workplace, whether at home by being silly. You know, we often are silly at home or silly in front of our children to help build morale, help alleviate the stress. So it's normally done for no other reason but just to make people smile and be happy. That's often a lot of the time what we're trying to do, to change people's mood and elevate the atmosphere and the feeling in the air. Okay, right. I don't want to waffle on so much. Again, waffle on. That means to chat. All right, wrapping it up. Right, let me have a look at my notes. The way you talk projects your narrative, your story, or your life at present. So if you're kind of person that's feeling depressed, maybe your dog's died, you would have a different narrative, a different way of talking. The type of words would be much more negative and nihilistic, you know. So that would be kind of like your mood and your ethos, maybe for a few months. Or maybe you're a very positive, happy, outgoing kind of person, and you're always talking about some fun and comedy and silliness. Maybe you're a lawyer or a solicitor, and you're very serious, and you're always looking for the legal implications and the ramifications of every action that's done by people in society. Maybe you're very serious all the time, and maybe that's your personality. Maybe that's your personality. You're a serious kind of guy. You're focused on money, and you're focused on your career, and you're focused on being driven to do what you're aiming to do. But that's just some people's narrative, their story, who they are. All right? And that, like I said, that's reflected in your kind of speech over a longer period of time. So maybe over a few weeks or a few months, you go, that person's really serious. That person's really depressed. Or that person's really a dreamer, always talking about pie in the sky ideas and never actually doing much. Or an adventurer. You know, somebody that's very adventurous because he's always talking about how he wants to do this and do that and go off here and go there and help this and do. So if you listen carefully, the whole British communication, the British language is very small a box to put it in, because this language is communicating multiple things. And in different situations. So we'd have a different attitude and different hat. You might put on a different hat. Again, that's another saying or phrase. Well, I put on my business hat now. I'm going to go and sort out X, Y, and Z down at the council office. Or I'm going to go put on my silly hat now because it's time to play with the children. Or I'm going to go put on my other hat now because it's time to go to work. That's often a case where they say, come on, you got to be a professional. Maybe something's happened at work that's really, really upset you. Or you've had an argument with your spouse, your other half, and then you've had to go straight to work. And then you got to compartmentalize that, put it to one side, and then put on your work professional hat back on. And so you change hats. And that's kind of like our personalities and characters, depending on where we are, can really change our, not just our narrative, but the way we communicate with other people in the world. Maybe you're a vicar and you've got to be positive and think of the collective, but you might have had a really bad news or something happened in your life, but you've got to put on a brave face. You know, going back to different personalities and different attitudes, putting on a brave face, stiff upper lip, chin up, and soldier on. You know, that's where you got to try your hardest to work through this and deliver a professional or an adult or an appropriate response. So this is very, very difficult to do. Again, there are occasions where you can drop all that. Maybe you're at the funeral of somebody near and dear to you, or like I said, maybe your dog's died and you're burying the dog in the garden and you just break down in crying and losing your mind. That's understandable. But generally, most of the time, people have different hats for different situations. We have different narratives and stories depending on how our mood is in the day or how our outlook on life is at present. So there's all these things all wrapped up in how we project ourselves. All right, and it can be very, very difficult to navigate these intrepid waters and these people. But you got to bear in mind that these people have their own lives. You don't know everything that's going on in somebody's life. So all I ask is that you take a moment just to be compassionate that somebody could be going through a difficult time in their life or a difficult phase in their education or at home. So often people aren't being malice or grumpy or negative on purpose. There's often reasons behind it. And if we can just be compassionate and step back, you might find that in a few weeks or a few months or the next time you talk to that person, they may have a different outlook, a different feeling and a different narrative completely. So, and we all go through this. We're all human. We all go through the same kind of mood swings and personalities and depending on where we are in life. All right. So that's kind of the way I feel about communication in Britain, in real life, in real scenarios, real situations, full of sarcasm, full of riddles, full of metaphors and obscure phrases. All right, so that is an interesting part that you won't see in textbooks. That is what you won't hear on the internet. And you won't get that until you're either in the country or listening to like radio or a natural podcast like this. So tell me about your country. Is it the same in your country? Are you massively complicated or is your communication style very direct? Are you very separated from people that you talk to? Let me know in the comments below. All right, that's it for this video. Take a look at my website, www.englishpodcastwithpaul. And if you found some value with this, please like and subscribe. And if you want, you can go and buy me a coffee, something like that. All right, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye for now.